learners, welcome to today's session. In today's session, we will be talking about solid waste. What are the sources of the solid waste and what effects does it have on our environment and our health. So, learners, the term is not at all new to you. You must have heard about solid waste. It is an emerging problem of today. When we look around, we see different kinds of waste being generated by various sources. You find paper, plastic, old furniture, old crockery, especially during the festival seasons. We find lot of waste being dumped here and there. From where does it come and why it is so worrisome that we should do something immediately to address this problem. Learners, you know that solid waste is one of the gravest environmental concerns of today. At times we talked about pollution of different kinds and solid waste was considered to be a part of the pollution problem. But today it is emerged as something very serious which needs immediate solutions, because waste generation has increased beyond limits, but most worrisome part is that not only the amount of waste generation has increased, but also the nature of the waste has been altered. Before the onset of industrialization, most of the waste materials which were being generated were taken care of by the nature itself. They were less in volume, not dangerous, had no chemicals, most of it was biodegradable, and ample land was there where it could be thrown away, you can say, and where the nature was able to take care of those discarded substances. But today, as you see, we are already running short of space. Our landfills are exhausted, running beyond their limits. Waste materials have increased in the variety also. Paper, plastic, then plastics of various kinds, single-use plastics. In the COVID times, we have seen that how biomedical waste became a major concern, where in the quarantine centers, in the pathological labs, in different hospitals, dispensaries, home isolation centers, you could see lot of biomedical waste being generated, and you see masks, sanitizer bottles, very common sight and very common things which we are discarding today. Where does it all go? That needs immediate redressal. We don't have the land increasing in number as the waste amount increases. We have scarce land. And the only option which we used was land or water. Either we kept it on land for the land or the soil to take care of itself, or we used to throw it in water so that it goes away, it is diluted. Another important concern is waste is a multifaceted issue. Not only an environmental problem, but also it is a social problem. We will see how. And waste management is essential for inclusive and sustainable societies. When you look at SDGs, whether it is SDG 3 for human health and well-being, or whether it is SDG 12 for responsible production and consumption, you find waste as something which interferes with the attainment of objectives of sustainable development goals. So, let us get more information on this topic. What is solid waste? It confuses. What is solid waste? So, in a common simple language, we can say unwanted substances. We are writing on a piece of paper and we don't want it now, so that is unwanted, useless, and that becomes part of the solid waste which is being generated. Production is always accompanied with waste generation, whether you see at your homes also, in industries also, in agriculture also, everywhere you find that wherever there is some production, it is associated with the generation of the waste products. In the residential areas, as I said, in the industrial areas, the commercial areas, everywhere you find waste materials, and it has also happened because of rise in population and increase in consumeristic culture of the people. Use and throw away culture. Nobody wants to repair. Nobody wants to reuse any article because many are available at a cheaper prices. So, the consumeristic culture where we find lot of things getting manufactured and we are using and throwing, using and throwing. So, that is the useless and the unwanted substances. If I scientifically say what is solid waste, that means solid or semi-solid domestic waste. Vegetable peelings, leftover food, broken toys, broken crockery, paper, that is what which our homes generate, and commercial institutional waste comprising of the packaging waste. What do you see in the markets? What do you see in the institutional areas? You find lot of paper, plastic, electronic items being thrown away. Then catering and market waste. When you look at the restaurants, hotels, you find a variety of the waste, maybe because devoted for some decoration purposes or cooking, or the different tissue papers which we are using, or the single use plastics in the form of disposable cups and the plates. So, in that market sense you find different types of waste. If you look at your streets, there are street sweepings, silt, surface drains, leaves coming out in gardens, you find horticulture, agriculture and dairy waste, because India is an agricultural country, and in agriculture lot of waste in the form of stubble etc. is being released, and same is the case with horticulture and the dairy waste and biomedical waste. That is also important constituent of the major solid waste problem as we see it today. In hospitals, you must have seen different colored dustbins where you find the syringes also, aprons also, human body parts also, expired medicines also, tissues also, lot of things which you find in the hospitals and the pathological labs. That is the biomedical waste. Also the industrial waste where you find the metals and different harmful substances which are very toxic. They are being released by the different industries involved in the manufacturing of various materials and the substances depending upon the raw material which they are using. So, the type of the waste varies here also. When you look at these waste, you find there is a great variety. At one hand you see the domestic waste which appears to be not rich in much chemicals, but when you look at the industrial waste or when you look at the construction waste, hospital waste, you find that it is very chemical rich. It may be very reactive. So, on the basis of this we can say that certain characteristics are there of the solid waste, that is corrosiveness, ignitability, reactive and toxicity. Corrosiveness means, for example, we have banned several pesticides and those pesticides are stored in containers since long. They corrode the metal or the container in which they are stored. So, they particularly the acids and the bases, they have the property of corrosiveness. Similarly, the discarded oils, you can say, they are ignitable. They may lead to accidents like fire. Similarly, there are certain metals, heavy metals which are very reactive. You must have seen how the industrial waste is being dumped, whether it contains iron fillings, whether it contains copper or heavy metals in the form of cadmium, arsenic, selenium. They are very reactive and they react with whom? They react with the soil, they react with the plants, they react with the water if they are, and they enter into the food chains. And then they are very toxic. We know that they are very toxic when we burn them, and when we burn them there is a cocktail of furans being formed and they are released into the air, and when we breathe those toxic fumes we may becoming prone to different respiratory diseases. So they are toxic, and these are the properties or characteristics of solid waste by virtue of which it needs very essential that we dispose them carefully. Because once a particular substance may not be that corrosive or reactive, but in the open surroundings, when we dump them in open dumps or sanitary landfills or we incinerate them, they react with other metals and the chemical properties of solid waste change, and in this way they may be causing damage to the environment, other living organisms, and also to our human health. Basically, we can say, according to solid waste management rules 2016, solid waste have been divided into major three parts. One is the recyclable waste, which we can recycle. Paper, glass, plastic, it can be recycled through proper following up of the recycling measures. There is a wet waste which is biodegradable, which can be converted into compost, and those markets can be created for the purchase of those compost which has been made by the biodegradable substances. And most of the waste which we are being emitting, particularly in our homes, 60% of the waste which is being dumped is organic, wet, or you can say biodegradable waste. So if it is properly collected, we can use them as a compost, and it should not be mixed with the recyclable waste or the domestic hazardous waste. So your vegetable and fruit peelings, agriculture, dairy, horticulture, these are the you can say potential sources which generate lot of wet waste. Then we have domestic hazardous waste, which contains of those substances which are very hazardous and which are being released from our homes, like paints can be there, diapers can be there, sanitary napkins can be there. This is the category of domestic hazardous waste, and in most of the cases we find these three major types of waste mixed together. In the dustbin which you use in your homes, we find that most of it is mixed. It contains wet also, domestic hazardous waste also, and recyclable waste also, and there arises the problem. We cannot go for its proper disposal because everything is mixed. So recyclable waste should be collected separately so that it can be recycled, it can be put to use again, it can enter the economy again. Wet waste can be converted into compost, even it can be used in the kitchen gardens, it can be used in agriculture, and it can be managed properly. Domestic hazardous waste should be collected separately and should be disposed of in a careful and a scientific manner. Further, if you see, you have different categories consisting of the garbage, ashes, residues, combustible and non-combustible waste, bulky waste, street waste, farm waste, hazardous waste. Different ways of looking at waste. Some see on the basis of the source from where it is coming. So that is why we say the waste coming from the hospitals and waste coming from the public places. Others can be dividing the solid waste on the basis of the garbage, particularly consisting of the vegetables and the fruit and the wet waste. There can be ashes and the residues which we call as rubbish. That is, you must have come across these words which are very common, garbage, rubbish. So they are being divided on the basis of their properties, the physical and the chemical properties. There are some waste which catch fire, some do not catch fire. They are bulky waste, mostly in the form of the furniture which we are discarding, construction waste, mining waste. Then street waste, which we see all along, which contains the plastic wrappers also, dried leaves also which come from the streets. Farm waste is the category of the agricultural waste and the hazardous waste which are released from industries, thermal power plants, and also at your homes if it is domestic hazardous waste. And why we are so much thinking about the solid waste? Because of specific solid waste which we are seeing in today's times. They comprise of the plastic waste. Plastic pollution has become one of the important point of worry. We know everywhere we are using plastics because of their availability, because of their presence in different colors, because of being durable, because of being cheap, we are using plastic everywhere. And when plastic enters into soil or the water, it breaks itself into very small particles over millions of years, which form, and it is called microplastics, and studies have indicated that microplastics are also there in the air which we are breathing. Because first of all, plastic takes millions of years to degrade. It does not change its form, it does not change its characteristics, and after so many years when it disintegrates, you know, Pacific Ocean is now called as the plastic ocean, because it is predicted that by 2050 there will be more plastic in the ocean than the fishes which are there inside. So, look at this fate of these plastics, and they are everywhere. They are in the soils, they are in the tummies of the animals which eat them accidentally, they are in the air, they are in the tea bags which we use. They need proper solution. Otherwise, after this COVID, we will be fighting with another devil, that is the plastic. Next is the sanitary waste, which is being generated from our homes, and also the increase in the number of the sanitary waste and improper disposal is also which needs scientific solutions. Then construction and demolition waste. After agriculture, construction is the major industry, and whenever you see construction activities going on roads or construction of roads, you can say construction of buildings, construction of highways, construction of bridges, dams, airports, you can very well see the different types of waste which is being generated, right from the stones to the plastic articles to the sanitary things which are being used, and also the different types of different textures of the soils which is coming up. Even you can say the wood, it is also one of the important constituent of construction and demolition waste. So, where to dump them? Then electronic waste, you know how fastly we are using this electronic gadgets and how we are making us dependent on these electronic devices, and in the long run it will become one of the major category which needs solutions from our part. So, apart from the different types of waste, these are specific solid waste which need specific solutions. You cannot have one size fits all kind of a solution to the waste management problem. Plastic waste requires a different approach, different understanding, different means of disposal than the electronic or the construction waste. So, from where are these emitted? As we have already studied, they are coming, these all the specific waste and the other waste which we are talking about, they are released from the residential areas in our homes, single and multi-family dwellings, in apartments, in the societies, then industrial, for example, construction sites, manufacturing industries, chemical plants, power plants. Commercial sources comprise of hotels, offices, restaurants, different stores, malls, banks. Institutionals comprise of schools, courts, government offices, non-government offices, different institutions. Biomedical comprises of healthcare centers, hospitals, dispensaries. Municipal comprising of streets, parks, recreational centers, and agriculture which contains pesticides, spoiled food, lot of food being wasted, cooked food, uncooked food, spoiled harvest, you know, this is all agricultural waste, a major sector which can be put into use, which is something beneficial and which does not create problems in the environment and to us. So, what are the effects of solid waste pollution? There are effects on landscape, that is soil, land, effect on aquatic life and effect on human health. How does it affect the land? You know, you must have seen the pictures where the whole mountain of the garbage is there, outskirts of the city. So, these are the landfills. We call them as landfills because our tendency is open dumping, taking the waste from the cities and throwing away outside, some below the hills or near to the water bodies. That has a major effect on the ecology, on the biodiversity and on the entire ecosystems. So, whether it is a grassland or the forest or the simple agricultural soil, because the traces have been found. Those places which are near to the landfill site, they contain highly chemicals in the soils of those areas. So, it has an effect on the landscape. It is not possible to live near those sites. It is not possible because there is a degradation of the biodiversity also. You find scrap animals, feeding them, getting food out of it, the thrown, and it is leading to increase in the number of pests also. The whole ecology of those area gets disturbed because of the dumping of the waste in an improper manner. Similarly, there is an effect on the aquatic life, because when you throw the waste in the water bodies, that has been the practice since long. It affects the fishes. Lot of studies have found that the dolphins and the fishes in various places, they have the traces of different chemicals in their bodies. So, it does affect whether you use lot of pesticides in your farms, and with the rainfall this pesticides enters into the water bodies, and then it enters the body of fishes and other aquatic organisms. So, this is the case with the pesticides. Same is the case with other harmful chemicals which are being emitted from the industries. You know about the river Ganga, which flows through a very you can say various states, and has a long you can say kilometer wise it is very long, and it passes across different industrial cities, and that is why the state of the river is in a very pathetic conditions. At certain places the water is totally blackish, you cannot drink that water, you cannot use that water for any of the purposes. So, ultimately it also disturbs the aquatic ecosystems, the diversity which is found in these water bodies, that has a effect on these also, and it has an effect on our health. How does it affect health? Because if our ecosystems are not healthy, if the soil on which our crop is being grown is not healthy, so indirectly we are also falling in. If we are consuming that water, we are also falling in. And another thing is that most of the practice of waste management is burning. In the rural areas, particularly during winter months, to keep themselves warm, they burn tires, papers, wood, whatever they find they burn, plastic. What happens because of this? Burning is very easy. It keeps you warm during winter months, and it also helps you get relieved from the waste that has been generated. But it forms a cocktail of furans, dioxins, different harmful chemicals into the air. And when we are breathing that air, that polluted air, we are prone to different types of respiratory diseases, different types of ailments of various kinds, becoming prone to cancers. These are some of the very common effects that the generations are facing because of the dumping of solid waste in an improper manner. So, how to check? What can be done? Some basic steps can help us fight with this solid waste problem. One of the most important thing is segregation at source. The waste materials, as we have seen in today's session, are of different kinds. When you see all around, you can easily say that the nature of the waste products which are being generated is very different. So, segregation is very important. Separate collection, segregation at source. From where the waste materials have been generated, they should be collected separately. Therefore, there is a provision of different colored dustbins at the public places. The same is desirable that you have it in your homes and the offices also. Zero landfill future. Landfills are not the solution. In fact, they are the source of the future problems. Target should be set so that nothing goes in the landfill. Only those materials should go which cannot be recycled, which cannot be composted. extended producer responsibility, where the companies should take a lead and held themselves responsible for the different products that they are selling to the consumers. An active participation from all the stakeholders is very necessary, right from the government to the people who are generating this waste and to the consumers, we people who are using this waste, so that we can follow different hours and check the generation of the solid waste. So, I conclude that the amount of solid waste in India is rising because population is rising and our lifestyles are changing. We live in a different manner as we were living. We are not living like we were living before. We are consuming so much. It is a burning issue and it should be tackled in a comprehensive manner. Government and public involvement is very necessary. Simply framing of the rules will not help unless and until we see that the implementation of several policies, activities and initiatives is done, so that we are able to control and handle the problem of solid waste in a more scientific manner. Thank you so much.